Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel for YouTube, and welcome to another Wednesday review. Today I will be reviewing the second full-length album from Belgium heavy / power metal band Thorium, and it is titled Empires in the Sun, which originally on March 1st it was released digitally through Freya Records, but on March 5th it was then given a physical release both on CD and vinyl through Freya Records. Alright, so let's get to the Bandcamp page, Metal Archives page. Alright, so, Thorium. These guys again are based out of Belgium, which is Flanders, Belgium, and they were formed all the way back in 2016, and in 2018 they released their self-titled debut album. So, I guess from here on out, this is where we then finally just get into my thoughts on Empires in the Sun from Thorium. So without further ado, let me get my thoughts in. Let's do it. All right. So before I really give any of my thoughts on this album, let's go through a track listing rundown. We have about 12 songs here, and it all clocks in at 54 minutes and 4 seconds. So pretty much just a little around 54, so it's just 54 minutes. So these 12 songs are Dreams of Empire, a Pastorelli, that's basically one song. Then Exquisite, Powder and Arms 2, Where Do We Go, More Than Meets the Eye, Empires in the Sun being the title track, The Old Generation, Winterfall, Itching and Aching, Dead Eye Society, and then finally it is ending with the 1302 trilogy. And this pretty much makes up 1302, The Minstrel Part 1, 1302, The Golden Shadow, and then finally 1302, The Minstrel Part 2. So there is your last track, and your 12 songs. Of course, 1302, The Golden Shadow being the longest song on the album. As you can see, it clocks in at 13 minutes and 2 seconds. So there you go. There's your 12 songs. Alright, so before I really get into any further with my thoughts, I do want to run through some things. So, let's definitely look through at least some of the plot, because apparently there is some themes running around through this album, and obviously when it comes to 1302, that entire trilogy, which I'll at least elaborate on. But even though I don't know much of what's half the time what's even going on with this story, I can't even find any lyrics to really kind of at least give me some ideas of what the story is. But for sure, let's run through what the themes are for this album here from Thorium, and these are words from guitarist Tom T. So, Empires in the Sun, which apparently I'm going to this whole entire write-up here of Tom T going through at least the overall themes for this album. This quote is taken from the site Arrow Lords of Metal. Alright, so let's definitely get through this. Let me run through all of this. So, this again, these are a quote, or it's just an entire quote from Tom T. So, Empires in the Sun explores the age-old notion of the ephemeral nature of greatness and glory, on how even the proudest and most unshakable achievements, institutions, and ambitions are ultimately destined to be swept under the tides of time. In the lyrics, we present a character driven by wild ambition to build, to rule, and ultimately to conquer and subjugate. Taking a cue from Percy Shelley's classic Ozymandias, the ruler forges his mighty works with a cruel and terrible hand, certain they will stand for all eternity and for all to see. Yet, for all their grandeur, the lone and level sands are all that remain in the end. So there is at least him going through a lot of the themes, and definitely, you can tell those are definitely themes, even about with the artwork, it definitely fits those themes. However, as far as musically, even though for as long as this album is, and I was kind of daunted, it was kind of daunting because I'm like, oh geez. And when finally at least listening to this, I mean, it begins with, of course, Dreams of Empire, a pastoral, which is a 53-second, very grandeur style intro with a very acoustic. It does have a very Eastern kind of feel to it. But it works because then after that, we're then treated to Exquisite, and it's just a straight up rip-roaring power metal track. And right from there, I know that I'm in for at least a good fucking ride. Because right from Exquisite to then Powder and Arms 2, this is a straight up solid power metal album. I really like the musicianship on this album. The writing, of course, is great. This is definitely you would definitely be considering as thinking man's power metal, because of there's a lot of themes running around, especially with Tom T's very his ideal write-up on terms of the themes that run through this album. It is definitely thinking man's power metal. He really makes you definitely again feel smarter than you really are in some cases. But with musically, there's a lot of great musicianship, and again, you got plenty of that twin guitar attack on this album. It definitely would fit on par with anything Helloween at least had released. I guess in some cases, Keepers of the Seven Keys, or again, Blind Guardian. I'll definitely touch on Blind Guardian on here real soon. Then, of course, you can make some comparisons to either a Scanner, even at times, I guess, even for other bands, I have to really throw in there a mid-late period Cloven Hoof. You can really hear, again, it's definitely got that European power metal sound, and it's great. There really isn't anything bad I can really find on here. Again, I just thoroughly enjoyed this one. And last week, I also enjoyed a great freaking album in that Significant Point album. But this one is easily just up there. This is really good. I mean, again, it kicks off with two strong songs being Exquisite and Powder and Arms 2. But then we got other really good songs, like, of course, these somewhat balls to the wall-ish style meat and potatoes metal track and More Than Meets the Eye, which at times also kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the more mid-paced material from Obsession, the US power metal band. And again, we've got some great vocals too, since speaking of as far as guys who I would probably throw in that sort of similarities to like Mike Becerra, the singer here, David Marcells, who had been with the band since 2018 actually. He's fantastic. He at times reminds me a little bit of Graham Bonnet in terms of just his overall vibe and his cadence and the way he just is able to just hit those notes. He really reminds me, I guess, more of a cross between Graham Bonnet and Bruce Dickinson. Just fantastic vocals. And I guess also you can maybe make some comparisons to even Michael Kiske of Helloween as well. But I really hear more of Graham Bonnet and Bruce Dickinson in his overall voice and his overall style. And he definitely is great. He really soars through most of these songs, really lifts up a lot of the overall vibes of these. Just great stuff. Again, since I also mentioned, again, More Than Meets the Eye, but there's other really good songs. Again, the title track is fantastic. The Old Generation is an absolute banger of a song. I really dig that one. Winterfall. Now this one, when this song began, I was like thinking of like, is this going to be kind of a Queensryche-esque kind of track, because of it kind of begins something you would have heard at least maybe like Rage for Order or Operation Mindcrime. But then it ends up steering towards something else where it goes in a little more heavier direction. But the way it begins, it's got that sort of Queensryche style build. And again, you can make some comparisons to Queensryche within their musicianship and their writing. It's just great. And Queensryche was also, in some cases, considered pretty much a thinking man's metal kind of band back in the 1980s. Great stuff. And again, it's another highlight for me. Finally, I think, if anything, one of the biggest highlights on this album has to be the entire 1302 trilogy. Because this is a great trilogy. This is the perfect way, I guess, you can end this album. I mean, it already is a strong album on its own merits, but the 1302 trilogy is, they really, in some cases, you almost would say, outdo themselves in some cases, because this is such a, this is more of what you expect from like Rush in terms of the way they end, or even at times begin. Like again, the sort of Cygnus trilogy, or even just the way like the Necromancer on Caress of Steel, or again the 2112. It's this kind of feel, but just broken up into 3 tracks basically. But I do want to elaborate on a bit of this whole 1302 trilogy, because of on the site here for Grand Rock Respect the Rock site. We got a little write-up for this track, because apparently it also brings up there are some guest vocals here on this song, or at least this whole entire trilogy. So here we go. For the epic trilogy of 1302, the band acquires the help of several renowned guest vocalists. Let me see if I can pronounce some of these names correctly. We got Arjun Anthony Lucassen. I apologize if I fuck up your name there. He is apparently, or at least from the band, Ariam Benny Zors Willart from 23 Aces. Joe Van Onenhoeve from the band Evil Invaders, and then and Anneline Orbikits, god damn it, Orbikits, I apologize. Moreover, Norman Eshley from Blind Guardian, there's your Blind Guardian connection there, lent his warm voice to provide the narration on a selection of songs. I think I can tell which one of the songs there, because there is a spoken word intro before the title track. So there, and just the selection of vocals really does add an overall dynamic to it, but this is a great trilogy. I think if anything, this is deserved to be at least heard in its entirety. You really have to hear it from the 1302, the Minstrel Part 1, through at least the Minstrel Part 2, basically. You have to hear it as a whole entire track, because you can't break this into 3 songs. It should have been one single track. It's basically, and the thing is with some of this track, I really do get a little bit of Jethro Tull vibes in some cases too, in terms of the folk kind of leanings. But again, it's straight up power metal, and it's right, but again, very progressive too. This is really them almost bordering on to more progressive metal in its approach, and more of the classic style progressive metal, not what people consider progressive metal nowadays, which is totally different compared to what bands like Fate's Warning and Queensryche and some of those bands were exploring. And I think in many ways this falls in that sort of line. Just great stuff all around. So, goddamn, there's just really nothing wrong here. Again, all my standout songs again will be exquisite. More Than Meets the Eye, the title track, The Old Generation, Winterfall, and then finally the entire 1302 trilogy. Those are pretty much my standout songs. So there you go. There is my thoughts on Empires in the Sun from Thorium, and my rating, it's a 9.26 out of 10. This is a solid album. Again, just a bit higher, just inch above of the Significant Point album, Into the Storm. This is really close to being other good top contenders for the best metal albums of 2021, because this is really good. I really like this album a lot, and I hope all of you do also like this album, because I will be linking you to their Bandcamp page where you can support the band, where you can listen to the album, and so on. Again, don't go on to Discogs and actually grab a copy of this on CD, because I don't want you paying at least whatever the price that idiot over on Discogs is at least asking for, because he's asking like what, $47 on there, when you can easily get this on Bandcamp, at least on CD, for at least for way less than that. They still are selling a copy of this, so you can easily grab it on their page. I hope they still are selling it. This is a great album. This is deserved to be in some of your guys' collection. Again, if you have heard this album, you can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. But if you haven't even heard this album, I definitely thoroughly recommend this album. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrasher Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.